From Tally to Cali.
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin Energy.
The vitamins.
The energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, the dust has settled at quarterback, so now what headspace will Thomas Castellanos operate from at Florida State? The portal has been quiet. Too quiet, I say. Time for concern or chill. And turns out not as much staff turnover as we anticipated. Wake Up Warchant is presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Noles in control at the helm of Vitamin Energy. Check them out over on the website, vitaminenergy.com. Vitamins, nutrients, energy, 260 milligrams, all-natural caffeine. The all-natural is very vital because it's a nice absorption throughout the day, Corey. Not a lot of, no spikes, no highs and lows, just constant greatness. Kind of like the, you know, some people say Vitamin Energy is kind of like the Bobby Bowden of energy drinks, in just terms of success and dominance in the dynasty era, like just continual
sustained.
Awesome. Yes.
Sustained, yeah.
Yes.
Correct. That's an apt comparison, I think.
VitaminEnergy.com. Shake it and take it. Give them a try, everybody. Try us out, warchant.com, the premium side of things. You want all the access to all the portal news. Shout out to Matt Lasser. He's got an awesome chart on the premium recruiting board, keeping tabs of everybody that either has interest from them in Florida State. Florida State's interested in them. There's mutual interest. They've been on campus. They plan on coming to campus. When, from where, what their rating was when they were in high school. It's really valuable, I feel like. Our Michael Langston's been camping out at Moore, catching up with kids. Lee Hunter, big-time prospect on campus Sunday, Corey. Michael was up in Leesburg on Friday talking to Ozme and Chroma. The grind don't stop at warchant.com. Come home. Put on the Santa's wish list. And come on down and see what we're all about. And you also get to read all the other message boards of all the other teams. You can see Florida, Miami, see what they're talking about. See what Miami's doing to get ready for the Pop-Tart Bowl, Corey.
Right. Hey, you can't make too much fun of Miami, right? They did make a bowl.
Yeah, that's true.
But, yeah, they probably didn't start this season. They certainly didn't start November thinking they would be in the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Yeah, don't think they went to wherever Cam Ward lives in Texas and like, listen, you, me, us, Pop-Tarts. Let's do this. How are you, Corey Clark?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. How are you? Did you have a good weekend?
Dude, we missed the hell out of you.
How was bowling?
Dude, shout out to Jeff Cameron. People have some conceptions, misconceptions, perceptions of who Jeff Cameron is. But Jeff loves the kids. Jeff loves his fellow man. And he's been doing this forever, even before he was part of the Warchant team, where him and Tom Lang throw in this charity bowling tournament every single year with the proceeds of it going to the Guardian ad litem. I've been pronouncing it litem for way too long, so I apologize. Yeah. But it basically goes to help out young kids this time of year that don't have families. They're looking for new families. Give them the Christmas spirit, if you will. And listen, we all celebrate Christmas for different reasons. My parents bought me presents growing up, so I didn't feel left out. But, you know, we're from a different tribe or whatever. But I love the season, man. I like it. It feels good, man. I like being around all my friends, seeing everybody. I like, seemingly, we seem to be in good spirits. We're in more of a giving, helping mood. So it was awesome to be out there doing some bowling. Went 116 on my second round, 95 in the third, and I was like in the 80s in the first. So I just wanted to at least get over 100 in one of the games. So I was able to do that. So that felt good, but also to give back to the kids. We missed it, though, Corey. We did.
Yeah, I wish I could have been there. I was up in Atlanta hanging out with the kid.
Being a dad.
Being a dad. And, so it's the first one I missed in a long time. Stephanie was bummed, but, we do other stuff. We have a good time. And I'm glad that it sounds like it was a good turnout and a lot of donations were made to a very good cause.
Where were you guys partying at? That was a very swanky place it looked like you were at that your wife posted of you guys.
Oh, no, that's just downtown Lawrenceville, Georgia.
Right.
You know, it's one of these little towns in a big-ass county where they decorate it and make it like a public square with a bunch of cool, like, little, the restaurants are nice, pop-up Christmas bar. A lot of good stuff. In Gwinnett County. A lot of good stuff all over this great land of ours, Aslan, including a lot of football players that are looking for new homes.
Waycross, Georgia, not in Gwinnett?
No, not anywhere close.
Okay, Waycross, where our guy Thomas Castellanos made his bones about him. Last time we all talked to you was a live show on Wednesday, And I think soon thereafter, when we signed off, Castellanos made it official, committing to Florida State, Corey. So I know we've talked a lot about it. I don't know if anything is maybe settled in your mind, in terms of not having any kind of uneven thoughts about it, but have you had more time to maybe think about it, what it means, what it could look like? Is it important that he has 2 years of eligibility? Some people say it's only 1. I've heard it's 2. I'm pretty sure it's 2.
Why would it be only 1? Did he not redshirt that year?
Well, in 21, his first year at UCF, he played in 5 games.
Oh, okay.
But the 5th game he played in was the conference championship game, which currently does not count against your redshirt eligibility. But back then it did. But I would think that since it no longer does, I'm pretty sure they could retroactively request for it and probably get it approved. Malik McClain is a guy who Arizona State, he went to Florida State. Malik McClain, we all know him. He went to Penn State, ends up in Tempe with our guy Kenny Dillingham. He ends up redshirting this season, but then their leading receiver got injured before the Big 12 championship game, so they were able to remove they were able to maintain the red shirt for Malik McClain and actually play him. And he caught like a 40-yard pass in that game, too.
Big catch. Yeah.
So he's able to play. He can play in the playoff. He can play however far Arizona State makes it without losing his year of eligibility. So I would imagine Castellanos and Florida State and the compliance office will be able to get the same kind of,
Well, we'll see if anybody even wants that.
Right,
you know what I mean? We don't know if anybody's going to be asking for that a year from now. We'll evaluate that. But
does that affect anything though, Corey? In terms of, I think people are kind of warming up to the fact like, okay, if we have 2 years of him, let's get to 8 to 9, build some more things around him, and then 26. All right, we're back. Like we're going to be in the middle of the championship chase. I'm not there. I think I'm ready for 26 to be now. Like I'm not deferring my hopes of a national title for another 2 years. I feel like let's get this thing going right now because I don't think he wants to mess around and win 7 games. He wasn't that happy in Boston College this past year, so I don't think he'd be that happy winning 7 or 8 games here this year.
The more I've thought about it, it's not like I've come around on it. I didn't need much convincing anyway. I mean, people that have listened to this show, I've been talking about that kid ever since that game.
Yep.
Like, why isn't he here? Get him here. So yeah, when that materialized and actually happened, I think everybody knows what I think of his ability. Again, not James. He's not going to be the number 1 overall pick, but he's very good at what he does. And what I think people should be excited about is what we've talked about. Kind of ad nauseum since Malzahn was hired. Is like he's very good at developing running games. No matter where he is, no matter who's blocking for him and who's quarterback or running back, he's going to run the ball. Thomas Castellanos has never been able to be in an offense like this. Like I know in 2023 they tailored that offense a little bit more to his skill set, but he threw 14 interceptions. He was still a freshman. He was still going through all the growing pains that a young quarterback will go through, and not blessed with great talent around him. It's not like he was. Who's the kid? He didn't have Zay Flowers on that Boston College team. He didn't have a lot of big-time skill guys, and he was having to kind of do it all on his own. And now, again, theoretically, he should have more skill around him. You hope he has a good line of scrimmage in front of him. And he's got a really, really, really good offensive coordinator when it comes to running the football, and really good when it comes to quarterbacks of his ilk. Guys that are not necessarily future pros, but are dynamic athletes in college. That's what I'm kind of excited about is like this guy with some experience in that offense. What's it going to look like? I mean, he ran for 1,100 yards without Gus Malzahn as his OC and is like, the main person that needed to be stopped. So if he can stay healthy, what does it look like with this offense? Now, I don't expect him to run for 1,500 yards or anything, but if you have a quarterback that's running for, 700 yards, 800 yards, then that means I assume anytime a quarterback runs for 800 yards, then there's a running back somewhere in there that's running for a lot of yards too. That's how it works. And if you've got a quarterback that runs for 800 yards, which Castellanos, again, I don't know that there's another guy in the portal that can give you what he can give you just in that aspect. And if he can give you those kind of numbers, that kind of production, man, you're going to be top 20, top 15 in the country in rushing. And if you look at those teams that are usually in the top 10 or top 15 in rushing, keep in mind, aside from UCF this year, they win a lot of games. Yeah. And so that's what gives you hope. I think this kid is a dynamic player, and if you're looking for one quarterback in the whole portal that can be a difference maker with his legs immediately and help kickstart this offense immediately, this Gus Malzahn offense, I think he fits the bill. There's some other stuff that we've talked about. We don't have to keep bringing it up, but there's some other stuff you maybe worry about. But by God, the athleticism, it plays, and it's elite, and you know we can do it at this level.
What do you think about the fact when you hear things like Michael Langston reporting that pretty much every recruit that he's spoken to, that's Michael Langston, they've said that like Castellanos has been all over them. Like Castellanos is out there working the phones, trying to get guys in here for visits, seems to be taking a really proactive role here in trying to rebuild this thing.
Man, I was thinking about that too when it comes to Castellanos. Number one, something that I think I'll bring up probably a lot over the next 9 months is I wonder how much he could have left Boston. I mean, I know he gets a bad rap, and with good reason, because he left that team with 2 games left after being benched. But he did stay at Boston College. You know what I mean? Like I can't imagine he or his handlers didn't have expressed interest from other schools after the season he had in 2023. You know what I mean?
Right.
Running for 1,100 yards or whatever it was. I know it's not quite 1,100.
It was 1,100. I'm pretty sure it was.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Accounting for whatever it was, 23, 25 touchdowns. He's a first-year starter, leading his team to a bowl. I think he had a good bowl game. You do that in your first year, and you're in Boston, and you're from the South. He had to get, there had to be interest from other schools, and he's stuck with Boston College. So I think in that instance, that says something about that kid. He didn't just fly into the portal immediately and say, hey, give me my money. Not only did he stay in the portal, he stayed in the portal with a new coach. Or sorry, he didn't stay in the portal. He didn't get in the portal. He stayed on his football team, even though it was a brand new coach with a brand new offense. He still was a good enough teammate then to not go chasing money when he could have gotten some. I think he would have been. I don't know, a pretty substantial name in the portal market after the 2023 season. So that being said, I was thinking about that. Like that does, I think, say something about him. I mean, Florida State just had a kid enter the portal that started the last couple of games and did exactly 2% of anything Castellanos has ever done in a football game. And he, reportedly, rumored, whatever you believe or don't believe, asking for a lot of money, and he's done nothing compared to Thomas Castellanos. And he jumped into the portal. Now, again, a new offense coming in, different kind of offense. Fine, whatever you want to say, however you want to contextualize it. End of the day, Thomas Castellanos didn't jump into the portal when he had a pretty big name after that season and after that bowl game. So anyway, he's had a history of maybe not being a horrible teammate and being loyal and all in. And I think now you get a kid that maybe has some of those characteristics of being all in, where he goes, he believes in. I know I'm saying this on the heels of him leaving. I was just trying to add some context that he's the kind of kid. Look at all the kids that are in the portal right now. They're the Castellanos of the world. They burst onto the scene as a redshirt freshman, have a good year, then hop in the portal for as much money as possible, especially when you're at a place like Boston College. He didn't. He got in the portal after he got benched, which makes sense. But he also now has a chip on his shoulder. I like that too, man. I like that. I think he does have something to prove. He does want to go show Boston, even if it's just completely vindictiveness. And that's not healthy. I'm not saying more people should be about that. But if it's just vindictiveness, the fact that he wants to show Boston College they made a horrible mistake, that's good for Florida State, man. It just is. I do think that. I think most people play better when they have something to prove. Obviously, a guy that got benched at Boston College has a lot to prove. And I also think that shows that he wants to win immediately, and he's trying to get good players around him. So there's a decent chance he's a real team player. There's evidence on both sides, but also I think more importantly, he wants to be good and he wants this team to be good. I truly don't believe he was out there just chasing money. I think he's genuinely wants to prove people wrong and prove that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country and prove how dynamic this offense can be with him at the helm. So that's all good stuff for Florida State, I would think.
Yeah, I wonder, reasons matter for a lot of people, obviously. I wonder how much of like the last whatever 96 hours or since we all hung out together, with what happened with Luke. Luke's father spoke to The Athletic. A lot of people didn't like some of the quotes that he offered up.
What'd he say? Give me just like the gist of it. You don't need like direct quotes or anything.
No, I mean, basically just, really disappointed that they're at this point where he has to be in the portal. They everything they did was to put Luke in a position where he would not have to be in the portal. He liked Mike, great guy, stands for all the right things, stability, good fit for the offense. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, he mentioned like 3 things that he really valued about this program. That's, well, Mike's still a good guy, but the system has changed and the stability is no longer. So that's the way I kind of interpret it. But there was things about money. Like this, it was quoted. He said, "This, it's not about money." But then towards the end of the story, it talked about how he rented an apartment here in town for however like $1,500 a month, and he's got all this Florida State gear, and he's gonna have to get rid of it and buy new gear wherever he goes. But he's like, it's terrifying. He's like, we're in the middle of the ocean right now, just hoping for a boat. And then people are like, well, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to take yourself out into the middle of the Pacific Ocean and submerge yourself or whatever. But I read it where I'm like, well, it makes sense to me, man. Like, because he's like, we went to so many different places. We went to Florida State 20 times, and he talked about like it cost him at least $1,000 every single time they would come visit anywhere. And so, I mean, that's also factors into the money part of this thing too. But he's just like, we kept coming to Florida State because we just wanted to make sure it was going to be the absolute best fit for him. And he said, it's like, never in a million years could we have thought it was going to end up the way that it did, but it did go to hell in a handbasket. And I mean, it's true too, though. I mean, just who would have thought, a year ago, who would have thought, like, if you spent all this time, a year and a half with your son, taking him to this school, this university, and you saw what happened a year ago, would you think that within 9 months, this coach is going to have, like, he's going to be wobbled and weakened. He's going to relinquish his entire offense to a guy that might not have the most, like, upwardly mobile quarterback development resume.
Right. Yeah.
And then, you go 2-10. Like, it was bizarre.
And this isn't like the Luke Kromenhoek excuse making hour, but I think both of us are on the same page there in that, like, we understand his side 100%. I also understand, and I'm not going to get into the numbers, but we've heard some numbers that were asked from that side to stay. And I can also understand that by, like, look, man, this is number one, it's a business now. And if you're going to want us to stay at this program the way it's currently constructed offensively, and I know there's been a sweeping change, but still, you're a dad. You saw what just happened. You don't believe in the quarterback coach. How could you? How could you? Did Luke Kromenhoek look any more comfortable in his 7th game as opposed to his first game? No, none. It looked like there was almost no development look, he's sacked 8 times, man. It just, again, I've gone through all that before, but so I understand it. I understand all of that. You look at the way, if I'm a dad and I see my son play like that. What was his first game? Duke.
Yeah.
And then he plays again against Florida. Worst defense, by the way. I know it's a rivalry. I know they're the big bad SEC. By every metric and measure, Duke has a better defense than Florida. And Kromenhoek, to me, looked worse than he did against Duke, or at least the same. And so if you see that after 6 weeks, and after he's been there for a full calendar year, essentially, I'm like, yeah, this might not – like, I get it that a new coach is coming in, but it looks to me like it's going to be the same QB coach teaching him. Maybe he can get better coaching somewhere else. But it is it is something they decided to do, so I don't think anybody's playing violins for the Kromenhoeks. Oh, poor 5-star quarterback and his family have to go find somewhere else to play. They could have stayed. They made this decision, but yeah, you're in an ocean right now. You don't know what boat you're going to land on, come and pick you up, and whatever boat you do climb up on board, you don't know if you're going to be anything there either. So, and you don't know if they don't have any near. You talk about the 20 times you visited Florida State. Well, that's also 20 times Florida State hosted you, and so they have a lot invested in the relationship. You go to another school that's been invested in you for about 9 minutes. See how long they'll stick with you if you start to struggle. That's just the nature of the sport right now. So anyway, I think that's the way of the world now. But I also think Castellanos kind of makes that null and void because I think that it is a different offense. I do think to stay at Florida State when you don't know that you're going to be developed into an NFL quarterback, which is why he came here, because Malzahn doesn't develop NFL quarterbacks. That's not his deal. He scores points, lots of them, gains a lot of yards. He doesn't have a lot of quarterbacks that are typically drafted. I can understand why they would leave. That makes sense, right?
Yeah, no.
But they also asked for a lot of money, apparently, reportedly. People have talked to us. He asked for a lot of money, but that's a reason you ask for a lot of money. It's like, make it worth our while, because this is a big risk we're taking to not only go with this new coach that did not recruit us, this new offensive coordinator. You're also in the portal, getting somebody that might have 2 years of eligibility. Show us that you're still invested in us by meeting our demands. Otherwise, we'll go somewhere else. Those demands obviously weren't met because they didn't feel like they wanted to.
Oh no, I got absolutely dragged on the tribal council. I was pretty sympathetic to the plight of the Kromenhoeks. Again, it made sense to me. I thought it was a Rorschach test of a story. You either read that story and you thought, all right, he just laid out three reasons why they picked Florida State. Two of them are now no longer
right. But
then a lot of people thought it's a total money grab. Which I'm like, I just don't. There's reasons that he just laid out, but I also understand the money aspect. I know you don't like talking about the dollars and cents of all this stuff, Corey. But being at
I don't care. You're thinking of Ira. I don't care about that. That's the sport.
Yeah, no. So being at the Jeff Cameron charity bowling tournament.
Oh, I didn't talk specifics because they're rumors. They're not actual offers. So that's why I don't bring up the actual numbers. But anybody that's on our message boards knows the rumored asking price that the Kromenhoeks were asking for. So, it's hard to feel too sorry for someone in that plight, and that's why I want to bring it back to Castellanos real quick, Aslan, before you continue that point, is we didn't hear that about Castellanos last year. And he had a much bigger stage that he had performed on than Luke Kromenhoek, and it had a lot better tape than Kromenhoek did. He didn't have a 5-star next to his name when he came out of high school, but in the ACC, he had proven to not only be capable, but a potential star quarterback. And he didn't just bounce when they brought in a new coach. He stayed with his team. And I can't imagine there weren't other schools in the ACC or elsewhere that would have and could have and maybe already did offer him more money to leave Boston College, and he stayed at Boston College up until the point where he got benched, and then he bounced. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can look at that thing too, where it's like, all right, so there's a new coach and a new system, and he decided to stick it out. Like, I'll try it.
Yeah.
So I mean, at least he tried. Luke was like, I don't think it's a good idea at all. But there was a crazy rumor that got tweeted from I don't even want to say unreputable Twitter account. The account has like no juice in the game, but for some reason it kept getting retweeted, and Jeff even retweeted it and gave it credence. And then he told me at the bowling tournament that he had heard. So the tweeted rumor was that Quinn Ewers was getting offered like a 7-figure 1-year deal to go to Notre Dame next year, which I can understand. Quinn Ewers getting offered a deal because Arch Manning's kind of being groomed to be the heir apparent. And if I was Steve Sarkisian, which Steve, I know you listen sometimes, might want to look at starting Arch against Clemson. But Jeff said that he heard like $7 million, Corey.
So not 7 figures. $7 million. Okay, yeah.
Well, 7 figures, and
I guess that is. I guess it's both. Yeah, it's a big difference though, between 1 and 7.
I'm like, no way, Jeff. He's like, Aslan. He's like, you need to realize. He's like, $3 to $5 million is going to be the commanding price now for a good quarterback. Like last year, it was 1 to 2, and that's somewhere where Cam Ward ended up getting, and then I think DJ was north of 500 and south of like 800. That's, so whatever, the dollar figure the Kromenhoeks ask for, which however crazy it sounds like, well, then when you look at it through the prism that if a high caliber starting quarterback is 3 to 5, then what's a kid that we want some guarantee, but we don't want you to give us the world. Yeah. We're in a gross place right now.
Yeah, but I agreed, and I hope it gets rectified when the new house settlement, which we've talked about forever, but really should be coming to pass here, hopefully soon, this next calendar year, it'll be coming to pass, and then there will be, you hope, a cap on what you pay every team. I know in the Belichick contract, they he had in his contract to put aside something like $15 million for revenue sharing. Like 15 of the 20 that North Carolina gets from the proposed House deal would go to the football team.
Right, again, because these schools are going to get around $20 million
and they can
all
deal,
sports.
Right, they can dole for just in NIL,
yes.
And they can dole it out however they NIL revenue sharing, whatever. It's supposed to eliminate NIL. It won't, but it'll have to be back under the table again, and there could be legitimate cheating now. Not legitimate cheating, that's illegitimate cheating, but like cheating and then legitimate policing of it. Because if you give a kid $6 million to come play quarterback for you on an NIL deal, quote unquote, that's separate from the revenue sharing that the school is actually paying, well, then you have to prove that it's a legitimate advertising opportunity. Yeah. It's not just Joey from down the street put his face on a billboard and gave him $6 million. It has to be commensurate, I can never remember.
Commensurate.
With normal advertising rates for athletes. And I feel like there's a pretty easy way to police stuff like that. At the same time, you can always just hand them a bag again. Mm-hmm. We can go back to the good old days of McDonald's bags.
I'm cool with that.
And just turn it on the sprinklers at a football field and getting your checks that way. Whatever they did back in the day. But hopefully that'll be tempered. But yes, I mean, I think for this last year, while you're trying to get kids, would you say that Cam Ward was worth more than $1 to $2 million?
Even with a Pop-Tart
Bowl? Even with a Pop-Tart Bowl.
You believe in the November. Like, you believe in November, you had hope.
Yeah. So anyway, I understand. It's just from what Kromenhoek was asking for to probably come back and be a backup and maybe never be good. It's just too much. When you have as many holes as Florida State has, you can't pay that kind of money for someone that will likely, or at least has a chance to be a backup quarterback. You've got to go get people to block for your starting quarterback and people to tackle the opposing quarterback, not pay somebody to sit there and hold an iPad for 3 hours on Saturdays. So, but all aside, I get it. I don't think anybody really – I know it was a money grab is what people think. I don't think anybody faults Kromenhoek for leaving. The numbers came out. Maybe they fault him for the dad talking to a national publication about it. Like, of all the people, why was Kromenhoek interviewed? Yeah. That's odd. A backup quarterback that played on a horrible football team and didn't look good when he did it. Like, why is he somebody that was being interviewed for a story like that? But that aside, I hope Florida State fans don't have any ill will towards that. I hope they don't have a ton of ill will.
Oh, they do.
And it can at least be understandable why somebody would look for a different situation when the season went the way it went.
I think he might have interviewed Kromenhoek's dad earlier in Luke's career. And then also, by the way, man, it is Florida State, so, that just means...
An iconic brand.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Speaking of iconic brands, CP.
That's right.
2 letters, and you know exactly what's in store for you. Great food, ice-cold beverages, a great time, fun games, diversions, big screens, football, programming, all around you. Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, 2475 Appalachia Parkway, cptallybar.com, the website. Daily lunch specials from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. for only $8.99 on Monday. The half-pound black Angus beef burger. Chef's kiss. Comes with a side dish of your choice as well. Corey, what are you going to get when you get back to Tallahassee and get plopped on a stool over at the CP?
Buddy, I'm back in Tallahassee.
All right.
And I haven't had the wings in a while. In fact, I feel bad saying this, but I actually had the wings at another establishment while I was in Atlanta.
Not as good.
All it did was make me miss CP's wings.
That's right.
That's all it did. It's all it did. So probably the wings. I got the Corey wrap. I haven't had that actually probably this entire month. So I might go back to the Corey wrap with my potato chips. Okay. I love their potato chips now, man. I've always bestowed the virtues of the fries. The potato chips are next level, too.
All right. He said it, everybody. Listen to the man. You listen to him every single day on the show. Especially, you should listen to him when he talks about how awesome the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill is. Check it out for yourself, 2475 Appalachia Parkway. Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. We're back. It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it, take it. So, did some cleaning around my house, Corey, trying to get the office even more luxurious, if you will. Got some plans for this little old house of mine. And I went to this journalism expo like 6-7 years ago, and I was taking notes at it. It was like making sense of like a confusing world or something. I don't know. And I took some notes down, and there was a cynic and then a skeptic. And cynics are people that have their mind made up, and that's that. Skeptics maybe see things through a more, less rosy light, but they're open to facts. You can change their mind. Cynic, it doesn't matter. So let me know if I'm being cynical here.
Or skeptical.
All right, so if you look at this from like a 30,000-foot view thing right now, like Florida State's got commitments from Marquise Douglas. They got Stephon Thompson. That's a big commitment, linebacker. He was at Syracuse 2 years ago. They tried to get him last year. He ends up going to Nebraska. Now he's in the fold with Florida State. I think he's already enrolled and everything. So that's big. I think Florida State, they're setting themselves up here, Corey, where I think they've got specific targets, and man, they've got to really hit on this, because right now when you kind of look at this, Mike is kind of deferred and delegated everything on offense to Gus. And Gus is like, okay, I'm going to bring in, quote unquote, my quarterback, bring in my offensive line coach, my wide receivers coach. So it's almost, this would be like Steve Sarkisian being like, all right, man, I got it. I messed up. I'm going to go to Lubbock, and I'm going to give everything to the guy that's the OC at Texas Tech to take this thing over. Defensively, it's like Tony White's show. Like Tony White, bring whoever you can from Nebraska. And there was all this excitement about guys from Nebraska that were going to be coming on visits. So Jamari Butler, he ends up committing to LSU. Princewell Umimilian, who I don't think we're really ever in the mix for, ends up committing to Ole Miss. Keanu Davis from Nebraska ends up staying in Nebraska. So right now, man, there's Florida State outside of, probably they're going to get these two guys, I think, from UCF, offensive linemen. But the Nebraska cavalry, I don't think is coming, although they have a really talented edge guy in James Williams that they're probably in really good position for. But right now, I know it's early, but Florida State, this is a very pivotal week, Corey, because they're bringing a whole bunch of guys in for visits. But right now, it just seems like all these elite wide receivers are not even visiting. I think Kevin Concepcion might be coming, and we're in his top 6.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
That's who my son keeps bringing up over and over. They got to get the guy from NC State. And I'm like, all right, Brady, he's wanted by SEC teams too. But yeah, that'd be good.
So Reggie Virgil from Miami of Ohio, they were in the mix for. He committed to Texas Tech. It just seems like the window is getting that much smaller and smaller right now with what Florida State has to do. Like I'm disappointed with where they're at right now in the portal. They might get the James Williams kid. That makes you feel good about the edge. But right now it's a lot of guys that Tony White is going to bring with him and a lot of guys that Gus is going to bring with him. And then everybody else out there that's kind of floating in these elite ether, they're either not visiting or they're coming in on their 4th or 5th visit to Florida State, which I don't feel good about when it comes to recruiting in the transfer portal. Is it too early to be feeling anxiety about where Florida State is because it's a marathon? This thing is open until the beginning of January.
Yes, it's too early for that, but I understand the concern because, yeah, you would like some of these names that were kind of high on your list to not just go to the SEC immediately, never really give you a chance. That said, like I've said, they need two wide receivers, maybe one. They don't need a ton, not with this offense. And I think, what I get, because you talked at the beginning of the show about you want a fast fix. You want to be good immediately, and you can be good immediately. You might not be a sustained excellent program immediately. You don't go from 2 to 10 to that in a year, but you could get yourself a roster to be good again immediately. What I think should hopefully give Florida State fans some hope and some confidence is that, especially on defense, well, on both really, but on defense, it's like, man, those guys, this Nebraska staff that we're talking about right now built that defense. They know what they're looking for. It wasn't just they had to have these specific guys or they were going to suck. I feel like especially Tony White at Syracuse, he's proven he can be a good give him decent players, he's going to give you a good defense. They don't have to be these players. Same with Malzahn, right? Like Malzahn, give him Herb Hand. That's more important than getting in my opinion, for the long haul. And I know the long haul in college football, it might be 12 months. Who knows? But if you're talking about sustained success, Herb Hand is a bigger get than any guard in the country. because of the way they've worked together in the past. I'm not being a Pollyanna. I'm not trying to be a blind homer. Getting Knighton on the defensive line to coach your defensive linemen, to develop them, and getting Herb Hand to develop your offensive linemen with these two coordinators has proven it can work and work really well. And that should be exciting, right? I think. Yeah. Because it's not like these Nebraska guys were all super-duper stars when they went to Lincoln. They were kind of evaluated well and developed into them. So that's why I think it's too early to worry about who they're getting, because these guys have proven if they just have a modicum of decent players on their team, they can put together elite sides of the ball. But, yeah, I would say that I'm saying this right now on what's today, December 14th or something, 15th. If I'm still saying this on December 29th and they have three guys from the portal, one's the quarterback at BC that was benched, another one is a 6-year linebacker, and then the other one is Marquise Douglas, and that's it, yeah, it's time to panic. But you got to feel like they're going to start filling out this roster quickly and with better players than they had, except maybe on the defensive line. That's my biggest concern in the portal right now by far. Yeah. Is you've got to go get some defensive linemen for Knighton and White to work with, and I'm not liking what I'm seeing. I shouldn't say I'm not liking what I'm seeing. I just want to see some more guys committing to Florida State here in the next week or two.
Yeah. Lee Hunter, who actually Florida State was recruiting when he was coming out of high school. He committed originally to Auburn, went to Auburn when Gus was there. Then he went to UCF when Gus was there, so that's a really good sign. I mean, 9.5 tackles for loss, playing on the interior, wide load, big body sort of dude. Was on campus on Sunday, but he's also going to be in Texas. I think he's going to Texas Tech for one day, and then he's doing a multi-day visit to UT Austin.
But he's also supposedly coming back for an official, right? This was just a stop-in.
Okay.
On his way, I think. That's what I thought I read from Lasser, was that it was just kind of a stopover on the way to those visits, but then he's got an official visit on Sunday. So if he makes it back for his official visit after just stopping here, well, that seems like a pretty good sign, I would think.
Well, that makes you feel better about things then. Yeah. I don't recall picking that up out of the story, but I defer to you and your reading comprehension. So, yeah, I mean, Lee Hunter's one of the guys that they're in the mix for. Again, James Williams, there's a quote out there where he said that, like Terrence Knighton basically like saved his life. Terrence Knighton is not a father figure to him. He's pretty much his father. So, I mean, when you say things like that, it's like, all right, well, I'm sure he's, feel pretty good about him probably ending up in Tallahassee. I just wonder, it felt like last year it was, hey, we're going to, I don't know, slow play, but they weren't kind of in a rush to get guys on campus. But then once they did, they were able to kind of close the deal on a lot of these guys. But it just seems like right now there's so many guys that they were in the mix for, like the kid from Kentucky. I mean, we had a 5 to watch on offense, and I think 4 of them are already off the board. And the one kid that's on the board is the center from UCF that, again, I think him, Caden Kilter, as well as Marcellus Marshall, they're the 2 interior offensive linemen from UCF that you feel probably pretty good about Florida State being able to get. But I just feel like last year maybe, Corey, they were kind of throwing a net. And now it's like it's less carpet bombing and it's more like precision guided strikes, because we're hearing, Ira's been able to pick up some stuff about Deuce Robinson, son of Dominic Robinson. Apparently they've made him a real big priority. He is not a tight end. He is a wide receiver. Yeah. Omega Blake is a guy that they're trying to get involved with here late in the game. Obviously, if they get those 2 offensive linemen from UCF, this is the way maybe we need to look at it. I need to maybe look at it, not be a cynic, be a skeptic. Like, okay, Aslan, if they go and get 2 offensive linemen, if they get Deuce Robinson, and let's say they get the Omega Blake kid from Charlotte, you're pretty good there. Randy Pittman's a guy that was on campus that plays tight end. I'm not too worried about tight end, though. And then defensively, they get James Williams, they get another edge guy. They kept Omar Graham. They held on to him. They brought in Stephon Thompson, so you feel pretty good about your linebacking core. I guess we're just going to We're going to trust Patrick Surtain in the back end of this defense. Shaheem's probably
Omar Graham's back, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Omar Graham announced. I don't think we've had a show since that happened, so that's good news.
I literally said that 8 seconds ago. Do you just?
Oh,
totally
I'm
tune
sorry.
me out?
I'm sorry.
You
I
totally
was
tune me out when
yeah,
I start
my
talking.
Fault. My fault. We didn't celebrate it. You kind of mentioned it in passing.
Well, yeah, I was going to actually try to lay it out for a little bit longer to talk about Omar coming back, because now we can celebrate him now that he's back. Now I can be like, well, actually, I'm glad he's back. I didn't want him to leave. Y'all were telling me that I was being weird for not wanting Omar to leave. But I guess defensively, you think Charles Lester, Quindarius, Kai Bates, Earl Little. I mean, I don't know who else are our cornerbacks though. I want another cornerback or two personally, but I'll trust Surtain.
Ricky Knight, man.
Yeah.
Don't forget our dog, Ricky Knight. I like that kid. I like what he's made of. Quindarius. I mean.
But last year it felt like they just let's get a bunch of receivers. Let's get Jaylen Brown. Let's get Benson. Let's get a couple of offensive lines. Sure. You're going through the shopping aisle and you're just throwing stuff off the aisle into your shopping cart and just kind of blindly going from aisle to aisle to aisle. This now feels like. So I'll give them benefit of the doubt. If they can hit on all this, then yeah, man, I will be celebrating to the hilt. But right now, it feels like they've given us a really small hole in this needle to thread, because it's like, all right, it's like almost Deuce or bust. It's almost Lee Hunter or bust. I just feel like they've kind of put their eggs in these baskets with these players, and maybe the fact that they're slow playing it, they feel really good about those guys. So I should give them benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, and I just think it's too early, man. I think at the end of the day, you're not going to get a whole starting 22 necessarily from the portal, but I mean, just do the math, man. They've added 3, they've lost 20 when you count seniors or early enrollees and or 30. So I think they've added 23. They had 20 high school signees and then 3 transfer guys so far. They're up to about 40 that they've lost. So, and they're not done on that end either. I'm confident. So, I mean, they got to go. They're going to go get 15 to 17 more. So, we got to take our time. There's a lot of kids that are going on visits. Not everybody knows exactly where they want to go immediately. So, a lot of people want to go to home for the holidays. So maybe right out. I just think these next 2 weeks after kids have started to, this last week was more about guys going in the portal. In announcing they were going in the portal, setting up visits. Obviously, this week coming up, in the next 2 weeks coming up, is about kids announcing where they're going to be playing. So let's just see where the dust settles. I think it's too early. You're not going to hit on. You're not going to get a bunch of superstars, and quite frankly, you don't need them, man. When you're 2-10, you don't need to be paying top dollar and outbidding Ole Miss for a wide receiver. You've got more, if you've got a budget, which I assume everybody does, you can't spend 25 or 30% of your portal budget on one player that's not Keon Coleman. You've got to be more efficient with your spending and get some good dudes and hope that your better coaching will make you go from 2-10 to 10-2 or 9-3. So it is a needle they have to thread, but I don't think it's not that hard to do. It's not that hard to go get yourself a roster with these coaches and in let's say an administration and a booster and a fan base, a booster club and a fan base that is invested and cares. It is not that hard to replenish this roster with good players. Might not be superstar NFL players, but they'll be good players. It's just what do you think the priority is? You're not quarterback off the list, and I feel like you probably got a bit of a discount there. So you're not starting quarterback off the list. You check that box. What's the next priority? Because to me, it's defensive line.
Yeah.
And then offensive line. Everything else is window dressing.
I don't know. I think receiver too, man. I think the Jordan Young kid they brought in, what are you talking about, Aslan? It's Jordan Scott. I apologize. Jordan Scott, the junior college guy, I think is going to be an absolute microcosm of this entire season. Either that kid's going to turn out to be super hyper productive, and we're back. We're all good.
We're back. He hinges on everything. It all hinges on him. All right.
It's just going to be. I think it's going to be so indicative of what's going either good or wrong with everything, or it's going to be they chased a Johnny Wilson clone, and he's not a Johnny Wilson clone, and because I know it's. We keep talking about how much they want to run the ball here, but I still think Gus would like 2 elite-ish wide receivers. I mean, who wouldn't? But maybe you feel like Jordan Young, 6'7", gives you a real nice target. If you can get Deuce, that's the thing. Like if they get Deuce, you're probably set at wide receiver. You probably really are, although they went after the Reggie Virgil kid who's from Ocala but was playing at Miami of Ohio, and he committed to Texas Tech. The Eric Davis kid, or Eric Rivers, I'm sorry, Eric Davis, Reds fans, shout out.
Yeah.
Eric Rivers, I mean, he's a guy that's, he was making visits last week, and I don't think he's got Florida State on his list. Kevin Concepcion from NC State, I don't know if he has a visit plan, but again, I get what you're saying. Lots of guys are going on visits this week, but a lot of guys went on visits last week too, and they've already committed. And Florida State didn't really hit on any of those guys, and they had interest in them. So that was a little bit of my concern. But this week, these guys getting on campus, I think so much of it, Corey, is getting them on campus and then not letting them leave without committing, because we saw it last year with the kid from Texas A&M that ended up at A&M, the Purdue defensive end, Nick Skirton.
Yeah.
It was, oh, yeah, it's fine. He's going to A&M, but he's coming to Florida State after that, and we'll be all good. It was like, nope. He went to College Station. They hammered it out, and it was case closed. And that's
good decision on his part.
Well, and it's also a bit of a, maybe an outlier just because he was from Bryan, or he's from the area of College Station, so it kind of made sense. But I was hoping they were going to be much more aggressive in getting those elite guys their first visit on campus. But maybe there's just kind of a different way to work it, and that's what they're going for.
But I also wonder, to get guys to sign this quickly, if you have to, pay Ole Miss type money. And I just don't know. I know what we want. I know what everyone wants, but I don't know if that's feasible.
Well, so how does it work?
think it means like there's a domino type system. Like the market is set with this kid or that kid or that kid, or the first 10 clear out, and then number 11 doesn't have a home yet, and you're a pretty darn good program. And I think, and people's like, well, you don't want the 11th best receiver in the country. Well, nobody knows who the difference between 10 and 11 is minuscule typically, and you don't want to pay an extra $250,000 for the 10th receiver when you can hold out for 3 days and get the 11th receiver for half that price or a third of that price. Like you just got to be efficient. There's market, there's a market, and you've got to adhere to it. But again, I just want to point out, SMU and Indiana are in the playoff. Like you can get to where you need to be without overbidding and overextending yourself immediately. Let some of this stuff play out. Let see where people go, who you have a real chance with, get them here and make it worth their while to stay here. But we're early on. They have till January 5th. So this the next 2.5, 3 weeks. There's also the portal season in the spring. And you can also, I guess I'd say this, Aslan, the time to get desperate is New Year's Eve. If you still are if you've only gotten 6 transfers, it's New Year's Eve, all your big guys have left, well, maybe you call back some guys where you finish second and up the ante. You got money to spend. You saved all the money on Kromenhoek. You kept Papuchis, so there was no buyout there. Apparently you're keeping some of these other coaches. There's no buyouts there. So you got some money that you maybe didn't think you had, and you start throwing desperation money then. Right now, see what you can get with normal money. That's all. That would be my approach. But I get it. You also want to make a splash quickly. Well, It'd be nice to have a splash. I get that. But I think that there will be an improvement at wide receiver out there this week that will be interested in Florida State. And I mean improvement as to who's on your current roster. There will be an upgrade. There are upgrades out there. There will still be upgrades, even if Deuce Robinson and Concepcion go somewhere else. You will be able to get upgrades. You're also allowed for the kids on your team that we kind of like, some of them, to get better and become dudes. That's allowed too. Maybe Elijah Moore is the Deuce Robinson of 2025. Who knows? Like that, that's allowed. You're allowed to hit on some of these evaluations, develop them, and make them good players. And you got a new receivers coach, so maybe he'll be the difference maker.
Yeah, to your point, maybe I'm focusing on the wrong stuff here when I think about wide receiver. Because
I
it's
definitely
the Gus
do
offense. It's the Gus offense, so it's
right.
But they're not even in the mix with any tackles, and the tackles are in the mix for the kid, the Derek Simmons kid. I think I've been terrible with names today. I apologize, everybody. From Western Carolina, not even going to come visit. That was one of his first offers, and he's a tackle, productive guy. Can't even get him on campus. There's a kid from Northwestern, which I don't really know how legitimate that was at any point, but he's not even visiting here. Now they're in the mix with a kid from Vanderbilt, but he's going to A&M, I think, on one of his first visits. So
So you're not going to get a whole new starting five probably on the offensive line.
But you get
might.
the two guys from UCF, so you get the center and then a guard. And I guess
then
you feel
also,
good about
again,
Richie Leonard. You feel good about Richie Leonard, one of the other guards. And then what tackle you're going to?
You have guys on your team that have played it, and again, they are allowed to be players.
Yeah,
they're allowed to get good. Like you could go get a kid from Western Kentucky, or by God, you could coach the people that are on the roster and make them better. Like I can't fathom that Herb Hand had better talent, high school talent, like ballyhoo talent. Work the last 4 years at UCF that Alex Atkins did at Florida State. They were not recruiting the same types of players. And he managed to do what he did. And you can say, well, he was playing in the in the Big 12? Were they in the Big 12 all 4 of these last years?
No, just this.
The last couple. But they were top 10 in rushing each of the last 2 years. Well, last 4 years, really, but the last 2 in the Big 12 without All-Americans, without high draft picks, without 5-star or even mostly probably 4-star offensive linemen. And he made it work. So, again, I'm not saying you just stand pat. Absolutely not. But you've got a lot of bodies at offensive line. Let's hope they'll get the coaching they need, coupled with the scheme that, maybe, shows off their strengths. And they can make it work without having to get a whole new offensive line. And again, I'm just saying maybe you don't go overspend on a guy that was from Western Kentucky. You've got to be smarter with your money. Get your guys from UCF that can play.
No.
Maybe get one more, and then by God, Lucas Simmons is allowed to be something. Otto, Rizzi, like you said, Leonard. Like maybe that together it can't be any worse, gang. It literally can't be any worse. So rest easy knowing that you can't see an offensive line next year that's as bad as the one you just saw, and having one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the country, even if they aren't very good, will help eliminate some of those concerns. But again, go get players, man. Don't think that I'm sitting here saying stand pat. They can't. I don't even know how many. Well, they have 60 scholarship players right now in their roster, 65. They got 40 spots. Technically or theoretically, they're going to have 40 spots to fill. So they need to get on it and start signing some players. But it's cool to have Biscuit back.
All right, wrapping things up on a Monday. It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it and take it. You're going to like it, everybody. Yeah, just the last thing on the previous thought, Corey, was just, I get it, man. Like, we're paying these coaches a lot of money. Although Herb Hand, I think, is getting pretty modest salary, it feels like, for his resume.
Okay.
Especially, but then again, I don't know. Maybe think about you're paying Alex Atkins 1.7 or something, and he was your
coach.
He was your OC and your offensive line coach. So now you're paying Gus 1 point whatever,
right,
and then Herb Hand. So you're having to pay both. But I actually have a real offensive coordinator. But anyhow, I digress. They're allowed to, yes, they are allowed to be better coaches than who they replace. They're allowed to earn their salary by improving the guys they have. But I just feel like a mild bit of deja vu with the Randy Clements hire, where when Randy Clements showed up, you're like, everywhere they've been fine. Like they've had really productive offenses. He'll coach them up, and I'm not against that. But I would just I'd feel much better if they went and got 3 productive guys that have played tackle. At least some bit of tackle, maybe a little bit of guard, a little bit of tackle. Like you don't have to be Darius. Swiss Army knife, at least 2023 Darius Washington Swiss Army knife, but this feels like they need some more tackles, because right now I think it'd be like Jalen Early, Lucas Simmons, and maybe Rizzi right now as we sit here and talk about what tackle would be, and then I don't know, like Jonathan Daniels, Jalen Todd, like that's your next tier, if you will. That just to me doesn't feel like that's going to grade out, green pastures for Castellanos and Kromenhoek and Cam Davis, but we'll see.
And
right.
Mekhi Dancy. Don't forget our dog, Mekhi Dancy. Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see what this roster looks like. And also, I thought they had last year at this time when they were putting together those guys, I thought, okay, again, nothing doesn't look like it's special, but this should be good enough. And it wasn't. We will have no idea on January 1st how good this team will be. We will know the pieces, but we just won't know how well they fit. Again, I keep coming back to other teams like, well, you guys know who's in the playoffs or who contended for the playoffs. Year to year, we just have no idea with these rosters what these teams will end up being. I mean, I know Georgia and Ohio State will probably be good again next year. That's about it. But literally, had no other than that, no idea.
Texas,
yeah, you're right. Texas will probably be pretty good. But yeah, so I am cautiously optimistic, not because of anything they've done in the portal so far. Although honestly, the best stuff they've done in the portal, in my opinion, is some of the guys that are leaving via the portal. I think there is some serious addition by subtraction going on in the portal, but also what they've done on the coaching staff. Again, I just think we can't overlook Malzahn and Hand on offense and White Knighton on defense. Those are very, very good combinations. If you want to include that in the portal, they've done very well. Now they need to start getting some players to actually coach.
Oh, that's something here. I wanted to shout out something, but
basketball.
Yeah, we'll do that in a second. Want to get here in some of the mental gymnastics, then we can get to hoops. Shout out, Jameer Watkins, Orange Bowl Classic MVP. Is it called the Orange Bowl Classic?
I think so. It's 2 games. It's really dumb, but not really dumb. It's just you're basically MVP of a game. It's not like he went and played another game and won the tournament or anything.
All right, so one of the players on the board for Florida State, apparently, that there's mutual interest on, is a kid that they recruited out of high school, but he ended up going to Florida. Now he's in the portal. His name is Jack Pyburn from Jacksonville, Corey. And this
the big white kid? I shouldn't identify him like that, guys.
Seriously,
but number 44, the white,
better.
44, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Sorry.
Speaking of Caucasian defensive linemen, Grady Kelly exited through the portal.
Yep.
According to some Twitter account, though, he's got interest from a lot of pretty decent Power 5 programs. So
I don't think Grady Kelly was bad this year.
Yeah.
Thought he was pretty good. He was serviceable. He clearly wasn't special, but he was serviceable.
So Friday was a lot of angst towards Luke and, money grab, cash grab, things of that nature. So this is the reporting from Gators Online. They're part of the On3 network. They cover the Florida Gators. Pyburn was, according to multiple sources, wanted some guarantees for his contract, quote unquote. He wanted $45,000 a month.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's 4 months, 5 months. I don't know. How many,
probably starting in January.
Really, like every month.
Yeah,
every month.
I would think so. Yeah. So 11 months at $45,000.
Wanted to be the starting outside linebacker. I think he might have been. I don't know. Maybe he was defensive end. Maybe he wanted to drop back and be a linebacker.
So essentially, he wanted $500,000. Okay. All right.
Wanted to play more on third down. I guess he was not part, which is crazy. I thought that would be his whole. Yeah.
It's shtick. Third down. He likes hearing that while he's getting set up.
And he wanted the most snaps in the rotation. So apparently those were the sticking points that could not be smoothed over, and thus Jack enters the portal. And our reporting on Warchant is that apparently he's already been reached out to, and there's mutual interest.
You can have all the snaps, Jack.
Yeah.
You can play every down. Hey, just show him 2021 and how many times Jermaine Johnson came off the field. Yeah. That's all the proof you need. Although I'm going to say
you can wave at us and tell us to get the hell out of your face. I want to stay out here too. And we're like, all right.
That's true.
Make a sack though. Make sure you make a sack.
Look, those are. I don't know how accurate those are, but that would bother me. But after $45,000 a month, I don't care about anything else. That's the sticking point. Either we give you this money and you play when we tell your ass to play, or go somewhere else. I'm not going to give you $45,000 a month and you get to dictate how often you're on the field. That's craziness. So, yes, I can understand if that were accurate, and I have no idea if it is, I would have a hard time as a coach being like, yeah, that's fair. How many snaps do you want a game, Jack? Because then what happens? Game 6 against NC State, he only plays 33 snaps. Somebody else plays 37. Is he in the portal? Does he hold out? How do you even what is the contract null and void? Then what? You sue the school? How would any of that work? That's just nonsense. I can't. That doesn't seem even enforceable or askable. Why would anybody care other than money? You're going to be in the rotation. They're not going to pay you that kind of money to have you not play. Anyway, that's probably too long talking about Jack
14th. He had 14th most snaps on the defense for the Gators this past season. He
That's not bad.
Started the last 8 games for them in looks like he averaged like over 30 snaps per game.
Yeah. So
It
tell
was
him.
really productive. That's the thing. Like, man, you graded at 70.
Yeah.
Like, you did good at that amount of snaps. But anyhow, I just thought about this, and we kind of buried the lead. We do need to talk about this before we get to hoops real quick, Corey. But just your thoughts on Florida State kind of that'd be me being cynical. I'm not going to say that. Thoughts on John Papuchis moving to linebackers coach and Ernie Sims going to be assistant linebackers coach. And I think one of the previous quality control assistants is also going to be assistant wide receivers coach. I guess thoughts more about Ernie and Papuchis staying in the fold, and they'll handle linebackers.
And they didn't mention, and Papuchis has coached linebackers before, and obviously Ernie was a NFL linebacker and a first-round pick. So I think that could be a fine combination. They didn't mention anything about special teams, though, right? Is he still the special teams coordinator? They didn't say one way or the other, did they?
I thought they did. I'm sorry. I think he is gonna. I think that's part of the deal.
I didn't see that when I read the release. I didn't see that that he was still going to be the special. I mean, I assumed it. I just didn't know if they had actually verified that. But yeah, I mean that's. And look, man, I'm
sorry. We'll shift to coaching linebackers while retaining special teams coordinator.
Yeah. So I mean, look, man. Again, I think that, along with Ernie Sims, will probably work pretty well. I mean, work as well as it did this past year. Also, Knighton coaches.
That's not a great.
Well, you hope that your linebackers are better. Like you got better players.
You mean you mean just in theory, just in terms of like the cohesion or the communication,
yes.
Not so much the production, but just
right. Yeah. And so you have a guy that's on staff that knows these players. He didn't coach them, but honestly, I don't know how much he was coaching. Patrick Payton to spin move and the spin technique and stuff like that, right? Like he's correct. Some of these guys are, they're veteran assistant coaches. They go from position to position, learn it, and are able to coach it. With Ernie Sims, with Ernie Sims as like the backup assistant, quote unquote, however you want to view it or phrase it, I think that will be fine. I also think that Tony White will have his hands all over it anyway. So that will, that will help. And look, man, I think this is something not to be overlooked. But you can't, if you fire everyone, you're having to pay buyouts everywhere. Again, not keeping Papuchis around, who I don't think anybody thought was horrific. Is certainly not special teams wise. He said, "Hey, his kickers got robbed." That they should have been 2 national award winners. I think that you saved yourself $1.3 million there. And so, yeah, hopefully he can start stockpiling the roster with good players. And yeah, I don't know. As you can tell, I don't really have much of an opinion on the linebacker coach. I do like that Ernie will be a bigger part of the staff. It sounds like, right? Like he'll be an on the field coach, right?
Yes, which he was once.
Yeah, but he's officially on the field. He's officially an assistant coach. I like that a lot. I think that's good to have people from the. I know he didn't play during the dynasty, but old time, big time Florida State football players. I like having those guys, at least one of them, on the staff.
I just wish there was so much more transparency, just in terms of like how much money Florida State has to spend on all this, what they're comfortable spending. Because I get it. To your point, you can't fire all these guys. I mean, although you can, because but why not keep them around so they're productive with the money you're giving them? But then you also just think about all the heat that's on Ryan Day right now. And like, there's a legitimate possibility if he loses at home.
First world problems.
If he loses the Tennessee, they might fire him, and they might not flinch about it. They'll be like, "We're done," and you're quibbling over $1.3 million.
I know, but again, now they don't act like they didn't just spend a ton of money to fire coordinators and go get other ones. Like they did spend some money. I'm not saying that's why they kept Papuchis. Yeah. I think they want Papuchis, but I'm saying like that's an added benefit. Is that you do save some money that you would have to pay a linebacker coach that you don't know, if he'd be great either.
Also, maybe they had the money to do it. Maybe they had the money to do it, Corey, and they just couldn't get the guy they wanted. Because, listen, man, they hired Tony White 4 or 5 days before they announced they were holding on to John Papuchis. So they might have tried to find something. And
But also, I think they like what he's done. People can quibble with the special teams. I mean, certainly that was better than the offense or the defense this year. It wasn't anything. The kickers were special, but other than that, the return units weren't anything sensational. But the special teams was, I think by any metric was top 10, top 15 in the country. A lot of that did have to do with the kickers, but again, Papuchis has been fine in that role. And he knows what Norvell wants in that role, and that is a big part of what Mike Norvell wants in his program. So, if he didn't think he deserved to be fired for a special teams role, it's like, okay, well, he's going to be my special teams coach. I'm keeping him there. I've got to find another place for him because Knighton's got all the defensive linemen. Yeah. Knighton wants to coach the defensive ends. I'm going to let him, so I'll move Papuchis to linebacker. Again, you can't – I don't even want to say that. We'll see how it goes, Aslan. Ask me again.
Yeah, to your point. I don't think I'll ever be. I hope I'm never after this, and I don't think before I've ever been more excited to watch the defense during spring football.
Yeah.
I'm obviously going to go look at Castellanos for a little bit because just to see what it kind of looks like, but I kind of have a gist of it. But I really do want to see, and I also want to see how they're going to practice. Again, back to your point, they spend all this money to get rid of coordinators, get new coordinators. All right, shake things up a little bit, guys. I don't know. I know everybody wants things to be more physical, and I get it. But listen, that was a staff decision. I don't think Adam Fuller was coming into work every day saying like, "Hey, can we just take it easy, please?" And Mike was like, "No," and I was like, "Please." Yeah. I think that was a collaborative decision, but I am curious to see what this 3-3-5 is going to look like with pressure coming from all sorts of different angles and wanting to confuse quarterbacks, wanting to confuse teams, and just seeing the level of aggression they're going to play with because, Terrence Knighton doesn't strike me as being a passive guy. I'm not saying that Odell was or John Papuchis is, and, Tony White is here, I think, to help fix this thing and then get a really awesome head coaching job sooner than later. But
if you watch Nebraska, I would encourage everyone to go watch Nebraska, like highlights from their games this year, and it's mostly all of them on defense because their offense was it was better than Florida State's, but who wasn't? It was a pretty awful offense.
They got rid of their coordinator in season 2. Yeah.
They play incredibly physical. They live for it. When he talked last week, he talked about like they love playing physical, they love playing fast, and they play for each other, and they play hungry, and how they play on the grass is a reflection of what they do during practice, and it has to be fit. He said all the right things. All coaches say the right things. Go watch them. Go watch the 2023 and the 2024 Nebraska defenses. Go watch them against Colorado. Colorado quit in that game offensively. Just quit. They couldn't do anything. They were getting completely manhandled. And that's a 9-3 Colorado team with a Heisman winner. And another guy that might be the number 1 overall pick. And they got completely manhandled in that game.
If I could add, this is one of the bummer things. That one of the linebackers, Mekhi Bayor, who I think there was a strong feeling he was going to jump over here, and I don't think that's the case right now. But he offered this quote up before the season started saying, "This team is hungry. We put in a lot of work this offseason. We worked our tails off. For another team to come in here thinking they're going to run through us or it's going to be sweet, good luck to them. I wish them the best." That's what he said before playing Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. And on the very first play of the game, he was on kick coverage, and he absolutely plastered a guy and kind of set the tone for that game for Nebraska. So, that's the kind of guys, the kind of dogs, either they have in Nebraska or that were created by this coaching staff.
I think they created them, right? Isn't that the hope? Like
you hope. This kid's from Jersey. He's from Jersey. He's gritty.
No, well, that's true. But I'm saying you create that kind of atmosphere the way your guys play. There is a part of that that's from the top down, and that's what this guy does. Syracuse was like that when he was there too. They might not be the most talented. I don't think this Florida State defense in 2025 is going to be the most talented. They're not going to get anybody in the portal, so how could they? But they will. If this guy keeps up with what he's done at the last 2 stops, they are going to play very hard and very physical, and that I think will make Florida State fans much happier. I mean, obviously the wins need to come too, but just watching a team that punishes people. Like make them put in a day's work. Make them feel you. That's what Tony White's defenses do. That's what Nebraska did the last 2 years for darn sure.
Man, this is such a long show, but one other football thing before we get to hoops. No, it's not your fault. Hey, Julian Armella landed somewhere.
UCLA. There you go. All right. Good job, Julian.
All right. So congrats to Julian. Best of luck to him on the next phase of his career.
Alex Atkins better hope that dude does not turn into the 3rd pick in the draft. Holy cow. You better hope Armella falls on his face. That's not what I'm rooting for, but I bet Atkins, he doesn't need that guy turning into a star.
Oh, and you know who UCLA's offensive coordinator is now? They fired Eric Bieniemy after 1 year.
Bieniemy,
sorry.
Yeah. Sleeping with Bieniemy.
Sleeping with Bieniemy. You know who their offensive coordinator is?
No.
Tino Sinceri.
There we go.
Sinceri, yeah, man.
Yeah.
His hair is amazing. So he's the
yeah.
OC.
So that's a tie to Florida State, right? His
Yeah.
dad was on the national championship
Old
staff
Sal,
in 13.
old Sal,
yeah.
All right, to the hardwood. Leonard Hamilton and his boys 8-3 after a big dub in the Orange Bowl Classic down in Sunrise. 77-64 win over Tulane. Jameer Watkins, talented basketball player. 29 points, 19 of it from the stripe, Corey.
Yeah.
Malik Ewan, 8 boards. All 8 of them are on the defensive side. I know you'd like to see a little bit more offensive assertiveness on the boards for the Noles, but anything adding to your hope, the good feelings, the good vibes around this team as they head to holiday break after a couple more games, Winthrop and then Louisville, and then a long time off before they resume.
Yeah, it's a big week for them, though. They need to beat Winthrop tomorrow at home, and then they got Louisville at home to try to even their conference record. They need both these wins. They need about all the wins they can get from here on out because they didn't. The ACC is not going to be a great RPI league because they can't win any of these games.
Dude, it's sad, man.
It's not great.
SEC has got
SEC's great, man.
Unbelievable.
It's weird. The SEC has gotten great in basketball and great in baseball. I wonder what's going on in every other sport. It might be the extra money they have. Anyway, so there's not much to say about that game. Florida State was down multiple players. We think from illness. I'm not quite sure. I should know that as I talk about it, but I don't know that for sure. But so they had to play. They basically had a 7-man rotation. And Watkins, as he usually is, was the best player on the floor. He was unguardable. They kept fouling him. He was 19 of 23. I think he's third in the country in free throw attempts, or maybe second in attempts, third in makes. But 19 out of 23, the 19 free throws made was the fourth most in FSU history. And the 23 attempts was the third most. And the guy in front of him is Jim Oler, who played in the mid-50s. I think it's pronounced Oler. And he has all those records. Like until Watkins, the top 7 highest free throw attempt and free throw make games in Florida State history were all Jim Oler in like 1955. So Watkins is doing stuff that hasn't been done in 68 years.
Is he like a poor man's James Harden? I haven't watched any of these games. Is he just is he going to the rack and drawing?
He's not like, he doesn't play like Harden like that. Like Harden doesn't, he's not that kind of guy. He's just a guy that gets into the paint whenever he wants and is really good at drawing fouls. He's not necessarily a knockdown shooter. He's not a creator as much as Harden is either.
Well,
but
I just
he's
meant
the
in terms
best
of like
player.
I'm gonna try to create contact on this shot that I have no really desire to actually put the shot up, but I just want to get to the stripe.
Yeah,
Which
he's
is fine.
Yeah,
I mean, points are points.
He's good at that. He's not a guy that, but they're legitimate. Like Trae Young and Harden, some of these guys, they'll like get by a guy and then jump back into him and flail their arms and the stupid NBA foul calls. That's not this. These are legitimate fouls where he's getting to the basket and they can't stay in front of him. And most of them aren't good enough athletes to go up with him, so they end up grabbing his arms and fouling. And he's good at drawing it, and in the last 2 games especially, because he had a ton of free throws against NC State too, he's making them, he was not making them to start the season. He is making them now, so it's good to have a guy like that, man, on your team that can, on the road or at home, close games, or a team trying to get back in the game like Tulane was doing the other night. They could never get it under 10 because anytime they'd get it to 11 or 12 or 10, Watkins would go to the line. And there goes the momentum. He makes his 2 free throws. It's back to a 12-point game, and the defense was good. That was Dang made a few threes. But it was, they did what they had to do. They played hard defensively, even with 7 guys. They made it really hard for Tulane, and then Watkins was the best player on the floor. And before we go to Nia Latson on Sunday, another 30-point game, 32 points. She still leads the country in scoring. That's her 3rd straight 30-point game. She scored 38, 39, and now 32 in her last 3 games. I don't know if she's going to be here next year, not because she transferred. I mean, I feel like the WNBA is probably calling. If you live in Tallahassee, go see her play just once. She is legitimately probably has to be one of the 5 or 6 best players in the United States and is by far the best player in Florida State history. She's awesome. And she deserves you to go watch her and cheer on because, again, shout out to her. I can't imagine there wasn't somebody from UConn, somebody from Tennessee, somebody from South Carolina, somebody from UCLA or USC that did not reach out to her. And she's still at Florida State, even though I think maybe they've won 1 tournament game since she's been here. So good for her, man. She's a Nole, and you should be excited that one of the best players in the United States plays for Florida State.
All right, that's a wrap for us. Maybe this is it for the
week.
Yeah, we're
for the
done.
week. Also, Travis Hunter, the Boise State running back, Dylan Gabriel. Those were my three. That was my order for my Heisman votes.
I mean, how could you not? I mean, anything else other than that would be weird. Although they tried, Twitter tried to make it sound like Ash and Genty got robbed. They tried.
It's ridiculous. It's
God
ridiculous.
love those people, but no.
As Bomani Jones put it, but I've said it before, but he put it on Twitter pretty succinctly. The best cornerback in the country won the Biletnikoff Award, which is given to the best wide receiver in the country. What are we doing? This was a no-brainer. I'm glad that kid got votes. That's awesome. But to make it out like Hunter was some kind of hype machine that just got credit for playing a lot, man, he won the Biletnikoff Award. And he was a lockdown corner that will be one of the top 5 picks in the draft. They don't draft guys because they play a lot of snaps. They draft them because they're really good at what they do. So, yeah, I know that and I'll go to my grave thinking this, Aslan, and then we will absolutely wrap up the show. If Travis Hunter is on the 2023 Florida State football team,
why?
They're in the playoff. They no matter Jordan Travis getting hurt or not, Travis Hunter, they're in the playoff.
Because you would not look impotent on offense with that guy out there at any point.
I don't even care
matter.
about that. You can't say that they're a one-person team or they don't have a chance when they have. Back then, even that year, he was thought to be one of the 3 or 4 best players in the country. To go along with Jared Verse and Fisk and Keon and Johnny and Benson and also Travis Hunter in the mix, who's playing both ways, and it might have won the Heisman last year at Florida State if Norvell was letting him play like that, because he would have been on an undefeated team. He would have been in the conversation. He might not have won it, but he'd have been in the conversation. Yeah, you don't keep Florida State out. Renardo Green wasn't as big a name as Travis Hunter. And he's basically a combination of Renardo Green and Keon Coleman. I'm just kidding. He's not. They very different body types and skill sets. But yeah, I do think that Travis Hunter, that's the star power that would have carried the day and made it impossible to keep Florida State out. And it's ridiculous that they were kept out anyway. We all know it. But I think Travis Hunter would have put them over the top. Just me thinking that. But hey, whatever. But who cares? Who cares, Travis? You didn't get to be a part of an ACC championship. You never even got to play in a conference championship game. Hope you enjoy your Heisman.
Do you believe he's going to play in his bowl game?
He says he is. Yeah, I do. Yeah. If I was in his family or if I had ever met him in my life and had his phone number, I would tell him that is a really, really dumb decision. Do not do it, because you know that man is going to play you 140 snaps. You already gave that man 2,000 snaps. You don't have to keep doing it. You've proven enough, man. You won a Heisman for that school and that man. You made him and yourself a lot of money. You don't owe them anything. Please do not do that. But, yeah, Shedeur will probably play, so Travis Hunter will play.
Yep.
The Florida State players won't be playing, though. Sorry, I had to bring it there, but, what are we going to do?
All right, stay connected.
What a long show. I'm sorry, everyone. Probably won't do one tomorrow unless some big news breaks.
Stay connected to warchant.com. Premium recruiting board, all the information you need on the transfer portal. The On3 network's got you covered like nobody else. So join warchant.com. You get everything on warchant.com, obviously, and everything on the On3 network. And you can hop on and laugh at Miami as they prepare for the Pop-Tart Bowl. Although they got a trophy. It looks really cool, Corey. Did you see this?
I did. It's apparently like 50 pounds, too.
Yeah.
I hope they win it. No, I don't. And they have it. It's still some crazy stat, like since 2007 or something, they've still won the same amount of bowl games as Bobby Bowden.
All right.
Something crazy like that, like because Bowden won his last 2. So, yeah, it's some crazy stat like that. So, yeah, they don't ever win bowl games. Maybe this will be the year.
Thoughts on Rich Rod going to West Virginia and not Jimbo?
I can't talk anymore, Aslan.
Okay, all right.
I can't talk anymore.
Stay connected to warchant.com. Jeff Cameron Show, 1 to 4 o'clock. Check that out. We'll be back a few more times this week. As always, though, subscribe. That way you don't have to worry about it. It'll be right there on your phone when you wake up on your app, or subscribe to the YouTube channel, and it'll be right there. It'll ding you. It'll ping you, whatever you want it to do. He's Corey Masson. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy. VitaminEnergy.com. Shake it. Take it.